So I've been waiting for a break in the rain, and I think this is as good as it's going to get today. So you've been watching me prepare some of the vegetables that I've been harvesting recently, the rhubarb, stripping them and getting them ready for the freezer. That's a simple task of taking off the outer skins, chopping them up and put them into freezer bags, popping them in the freezer. And the pasta sauce, my tomatoes, some of my courgettes, some of my onions, all chopped up and put into one bowl, and then put onto the pan with some garlic and just simmered for, I don't know, 30-40 minutes, perhaps a little bit more, and then we bag that up and that goes in the freezer too. And then of course you can add anything you want to that base pasta sauce mix when you come to use it for whatever cooking needs you have. And now we're going to get into this crop, which we really enjoy, and that's beetroot. And today we're going to make beetroot chutney. And step one is to harvest some good size fleshy beetroot, and we'll be gathering about 4 pounds of that. We'll probably take a few extras so that we can eat them additionally. So I'm going to look for some decent fleshy beetroot, and we've got quite a few in here. These beetroots are going to go on for a little while, I think. That's what you call a beetroot. Beautiful size. And leaving them this late, I find it's beneficial, certainly outside. You get a really good sized fruit on the end, or root on the end. Let's see what else we've got in here. Now this Boltardi strain tends to stay a little bit smaller, but still really nice. And this is fast becoming one of my favourite beetroots, and it's called Solo. This is a real pale beetroot, and it's got those circles in between. Well, that's 4 pounds and 7 ounces, and by the time I've taken off the roots and bits and bobs and cleaned them up a bit, that'll be perfect. So we'll take just a couple more for eating and then off to the kitchen. So the beans really are past their best now, and you can see the wind's had another go at these canes. But I'm just going to go through and see if there's any that we can have for tea as the last pickings, perhaps the last pickings of the beans this year. And there really aren't very many, so it's going to be skimpy pickings, I think. Well, that'll do nicely for our beetroot needs, and we've got a few beans into the bargain. Surprising how those beans just keep on giving, and certainly the plot at this time of year just keeps on giving. See you in the kitchen. So first step is to wash these beetroots and take off all the leaves that are left on, if any, and the roots. Give them a good clean up. Next step is to boil these beetroot until they're tender. And the best thing to do is to put these really large ones into a fairly big container and just cover them with water. And these smaller ones, probably better off in another pan so that you can gauge the tenderness of the cook that you've done. So they go onto the cooker. I think we'll put this one onto a bigger ring. And now they'll cook through until they're tender. And the best way to check whether they're tender or not, just to give them a good old prod with a knife. I'm sure these will take a bit longer than these smaller ones. So as I say, there really is no set time for cooking these beetroot. You just need to make sure that you can get a knife into them really easily. And those smaller ones are ready. And will now just need to cool off, and these larger ones probably need another few minutes, 10-15 minutes, before they'll be ready. So the beetroot are cooked through and now they're going to cool off, and it's going to take a considerably long time for them to cool. And in the meantime we'll prepare the jars, and we use a mixture of sizes of jar. And to start with, wash them in hot soapy water, and I put the lids into a different container because ultimately these jars, when they're washed and clean, will go into the oven, but I won't put the lids into the oven. I'll just pour some boiling water over the top. Pop them all in there and I'll get them washed, and in the meantime we'll add some boiling water on top of these lids. And of course the whole purpose here is to get everything sterilized. So the oven will be on about 110, and when these have been washed they'll dry off a little and then they'll go into the oven to sterilize fully. And by that time, hopefully, the beetroot will be cool enough to handle. So we take the cooked beetroot and just strain it through a sieve, and then we'll leave those beetroots to cool, which will take a good few minutes, probably 15 to 20, and we've still got the larger beetroot to finish cooking, and then we'll do the same with that. So these jars will now go in the oven on their sides to dry off and sterilize. So now it's time to peel the beetroot, and they're warm to the touch but not hot. So we slice off the top and slice off the bottom, and having cooked them they just peel off really simply. And this is the golden variety, and it's great to see how they look once they've been cooked. As you can see, much paler than a normal beetroot, but taste absolutely the same, and really wonderful taste. And when you slice these, having put a bit of vinegar on them, it just feels and tastes a bit like smoked salmon. At least you can kid yourself, it does. So there we are. We'll get that little blemish off, and that's ready to go. and we'll work our way through the rest of these. This is a traditional Boltardi, which is their traditional colour, and is going to stain my fingers, no doubt. That looks wonderful. Get all the skin off of that one. Comes off so easily once you've boiled them like this. There we go. And we'll put that one in. And I think a mix of these darker, normal coloured beetroot and the paler ones will result in a paler beetroot chutney. So there we are. Gorgeous looking beetroot, various varieties, look an absolute treat. And we're going to pour them back into one of the cooking pots and bring in the scales, and we'll switch that on and zero it. And we need to have 4 pounds of beetroot. So I'll put in a mixture of the different varieties. And there we are, 4 pounds, 3 ounces. Take that one out, 4 pounds, 1 ounce. Perfect. So the next step is to cut these down to the texture that you require. And you can do that by hand, by mashing them, or you can use a mixer like this. And we prefer a slightly finer finish to the chutney, and so we use a mixer. We'll put these in a few at a time, because otherwise it'll take a reasonable amount of time to cut them down, and we'll get some uneven lumps. So we'll get one of the big ones in to start with, and give it a couple of pulses. Just move it around a bit so that it gets evenly cut. And there we go. And that's the consistency, and we'll put that straight into the pan and work our way through the rest of them. So the next step is to add 10.5 ounces of sugar to the beetroot. So we'll get that measured off. 10.5. That goes straight into the beetroot, and we're going to have to dissolve that in a minute. And to the sugar and beetroot mix, we add 1 pint of malt vinegar. And that goes straight into the pot. Now we're going to put this on a low heat and stir it gently until we think that the sugar has all dissolved. And that's going to take a good few minutes. So I'll bring you back when we've got there. So now that the sugar has melted, we go on to the next step, which is to add 2 rounded dessert spoons of corn flour, mix with some cold water until you get a nice smooth consistency, no lumps in your corn flour. And then we're going to just add this straight to the mix and give it a bit of a stir in. It goes. And then the next step is to add some gelatin to this. And for the gelatin process, you have to be fairly swift because it sets really quickly. So we get on. We'll take one sachet of gelatin. This is a 12-gram sachet. We'll put it into this small container. And we're going to add 2 dessert spoons of boiling water. And this is where we stir it up quickly and get it into the mix. Make sure that all the ingredients are really well mixed in. And then we're going to let this simmer for about 4 minutes. And the final step is to get your jars, which have been sterilised in the oven, and to spoon the ingredients into the jar. I can tell you by now it's tasting really nice. I did have a sneak taste and it also smells really good. So get it into the jars. We'll just get this one full. Now this rhubarb chutney you probably want to leave for 6 weeks, and then it should be absolutely perfect for eating, and it'll keep for probably up to 2 years. Now what we do is we put a waxed disc, which is a standard jam pot circle wax disc, wax side down onto the top of the chutney. Put the lid on and screw it down and allow to cool. And we'll do the rest of these jars. And there we go. 6 or 7, possibly 8 medium-sized jars from that mix, and one more taste for the chef. Delicious. I do hope you enjoyed the video today. If you did, click the subscribe button, click the like button, and if you want updates from me each time I upload a video, click the bell and select all. I do hope you have a great day. Diolch yn fawr.